Very good, thank you. Welcome, everyone. Here for the regular meeting of Lacombe City Council for March 14th. It is now 5:30 p.m. and I will call the meeting to order. Everyone's had an opportunity to look at the agenda. Any input? If not, require a motion to proceed. Councillor Gullickson.
I'll move the agenda as presented.
Thank you. That takes us to the first item, the consent agenda. Any items there that you would prefer be removed from the agenda at this time? One, just to highlight it for me, I would like the City of Red Deer letter regarding the regional hospital support removed. I don't believe it'll take that long, but I'd like to take it out for highlight. Anything additional from anyone? Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I move that we accept the consent agenda as amended.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? Thank you. And I think before we get our regular business underway, I would like to highlight one individual who's with us this evening, Director Piché. Just wanted to congratulate you on your recent appointment as the chair of the Civilian Advisory Committee for the ALERT team, the Alberta Law Enforcement Response Team. We appreciate you being so involved there, and I know that your efforts there will be appreciated by everyone involved across the province, so thank you. I think it's also worth noting that our own Chief Bloomhagen is there, I believe, on the board of directors as well, and we also have an officer that is involved in ALERT as well. So well represented, and thank you. That brings us down to the first item as part of the.
We didn't vote on the agenda, adoption of the agenda.
Well, I just blew right by that and went to consent. Well, we will adopt the agenda at this time, and that makes it interesting for the second motion, which I let go on the floor, doesn't it? With respect to the agenda adoption, all those in favor? Very good. Thank you. So down to items, information items 2.2A, the City of Red Deer letter. The only reason that I wanted to bring that one to attention, I think it was certainly appreciated for Mayor Ken Johnson from the City of Red Deer to acknowledge us. I mean, all of the, I think the vast majority of the mayors in the Central Alberta area were on board with endorsing the idea of enhancing that regional hospital. I had some input from a few members of public that were, I think, somehow under the consideration that this was to take away from our own hospital, and that is certainly not the case. This is for the enhancement of the regional hospital, and I think if anyone has any questions, just to look at this letter and they'll better appreciate what's happening here. So that was the only reason that I wanted that one highlighted for the public. Anyone else? Very good. The consent agenda we have adopted, and that takes us down to requests for decision. Brings us to our engineering tech, Mr. Bevins. Please join us. He's going to be speaking to us today on item 6.1, Alberta's Clean Energy Improvement or Program. Give you a few minutes to get ready, and whenever you are, the floor is yours. Just please use the microphone. When your red light is on, you're good to go.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Thank you, Council, for this opportunity. Some of you might be wondering why the engineering technologist is out of the basement today, but it's a very exciting opportunity to be in front of you again. So the Clean Energy Improvement Program actually ties into the PACE program that I was originally slated to work on when I was brought in as an intern 3 years ago. And this request for decision is aimed at getting council's direction towards implementing it as a strategy in the future. And this is just to say that it is not exhaustive in all detail, and it's a program that is highly customizable municipality to municipality. So just bear with me while we work through this. So Clean Energy Improvement Program in Alberta, or CEAP, is Alberta's version of PACE, known as Property Assessed Clean Energy. The program ties the payments of installations and retrofits to homes, residential primarily at this time, to the property and not to the owner. Special development or more development in the last couple of years has included that the province placed an administrator to act on behalf of municipalities, residents, and contractors. Sorry. The program administrator is AMSC, which is a subsidiary of Alberta Municipalities. And they are the hub, as I said, for contractors, municipalities, and property owners. That's where programs can be initiated and agreements are executed. Legislating an administrator in this program is important to increase regulation in the program and provide consumer protections in Alberta. So currently, there are 2 municipalities that have active CEAP programs. That means that they are receiving applications, the town of Rocky Mountain House and the town of Devon. In speaking with Rocky Mountain House, they expressed first the desire to increase environmental sustainability in their municipality. Second, the opportunity to increase the number of projects available to contractors locally. And third, the opportunity to retrofit aging residential and eventually commercial building stock as appropriate to CEAP. Municipalities opt into CEAP by passing a CEAP bylaw or CEAP tax bylaw. There are currently up to a dozen municipalities that have either drafted or in the process of drafting a bylaw in Alberta. Municipalities then join a cohort of other municipalities during what's a design phase, where municipalities and AMSC can work together to design customized, local, targeted programs. AMSC has let us know that it takes anywhere from 4 to 12 months once initiating with them to get a project up and running. And that largely depends on the method of capitalization. AMSC has also shared that unless spots open up, the next available cohort session would be sometime next spring in 2023. It is the municipality's responsibility when designing a program to source the capital to fund projects and to pay for the administrative cost in running their program. If a municipality borrows to capitalize their program, legislation states that it does not affect the debt limit or debt service limit. However, it still does affect the overall debt ratio in the municipality, and it may have some special implications if a municipality decided to borrow from a major financial institution, for example. So those are my broad speaking points. I have my papers ready to answer any questions that might be forthcoming. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Appreciate that. CAO Gowdy.
Philip, I just wanted to interrupt and say that I think you're doing a good job on this and make sure that my friend here can get a little bit of action shot of speaking and that sort of thing. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I don't see a lot of microphones lighting up here, Bevan, but one question I had was you had mentioned a couple of communities here in Alberta that are participating. The uptake seems to be extremely light. And I was just curious, given the large amount of administrative time, both to set up the program and for ongoing purposes, what makes it worthwhile for Lacombe?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. It's true that we're in a very preliminary stage. It's been 2 to 3 years to get to this point since PACE style or SEEP legislation was introduced in Alberta. And so, like I said, there's 2 that are active and about a dozen more that are in various stages. So it is very early. The benefits would be similar to, I think, what Rocky Mountain House has indicated. There's an opportunity to recognize, a stewardship over the environment. But not only that, but to create an additional set of projects or number of projects for local contractors, as well as getting improvements onto houses that might be older and would really benefit from things not just like solar panels, which is often something that we readily think of when we think of PACE or sustainability improvements on our homes, but even just basic improvements to our envelopes, windows, doors, and that sort of thing, hot water tanks. So there is a benefit here to lower the threshold for homeowners to make larger, significant renovations to their homes.
Thank you. And thereby giving the opportunity, should they wish to go through the municipality, to access these funds and have that improvement program, whatever they choose that it may be, like you said, windows, hot water tank, that kind of thing, and have that linked to the financing of the property as opposed to a loan to the individual that owns it. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
The improvements are meant to be permanent. Part of the qualifications for projects is that they are permanent additions to a building that are not meant to be moved at time of transition at sale.
Great. Chief Gowdy.
So when Philip and I were looking at this, one of the things we would really like to have been able to bring is to say, well, what is that local economic activity that could be generated or is likely to be generated? And with the program being so new, it's very tough to find any data that would point to that. But in just a few short years, as Alberta municipalities work through implementation of this program, we'll have years of data to be able to look at whether it's Rocky Mountain House or Devon, and look at specifically what building permits were funded using the SEEP mechanism. And so if council chooses not to move ahead this evening, but to further explore it at some time in the future, there is information that will be available at that time that will help you make your decision about what the impact truly could be locally, from an economic activity standpoint.
Great. Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I think after speaking to these people at the Alberta Municipalities Conference, it was intriguing, and then checking out the website to further information. I like the opportunity that homeowners have. A lot of people are not necessarily in great financial situations to just dump $20,000 into their house to replace windows and improvements as such. And I think this is another avenue that we can offer people. I guess my one question is, do we know what the upfront capital requirement would be for the city to set aside? And I'll stop with that one.
Thank you, Councillor Dallas. I do have examples from Rocky Mountain House. According to the legislation, residential projects are capped at $50,000 per project. Rocky Mountain House has about 10 applications that they accepted, amounting to a few thousand, tens of thousands of dollars of investment that they put in. The amount of capital is directly related to how the municipality, based on the business case for the municipality. And so I think, like CAO Gaddy was alluding to, there is more work to do to get to the details, and it is important to recognize the administrative workload to determine those details.
Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. Lacombe was unfortunately experienced a number of hailstorms in a few years ago. And I know a whole bunch of people who already did these upgrades to their houses. So I'm curious whether that will also affect the uptake. And I guess maybe it's because I was one of those homeowners. If I've got to redo all my siding, then maybe this is the year I'm going to redo my house. My windows and whatnot. And people who didn't live here actually noticed that the whole city kind of had a facelift after the hailstorms. Will that affect the uptake of this? I don't know. I'm curious.
Thank you, Councillor Hoekstra. If I understand your question, it's how will the potentiality of environmental events affect a newly installed upgrade? Is that your question?
May I go for it?
Certainly.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Creasy. I guess I'm saying, are there enough houses that would want to upgrade their windows because maybe they already did it? I'm just asking that. There's been a lot of upgrades in our city already, so will people look at this?
Right. Thank you for the clarification, Councillor Hoekstra. That's a very good question. And I think that would tie into, if council decided, that would tie into the work that is left to be done to determine if there is a business case. Smaller municipalities are facing a challenge similar to that, where the cost and the cost of not only the capitalization, but the administrative cost is impeding them to a degree. And so that's a conversation that's continuing with AMSC and those municipalities. So it would have to be determined, I think, at a future date, if that were to be something that council would desire.
Thank you. Chief Gowdy?
Is there any funding, grant funding, say, available to help municipalities with the upfront costs or funding the initial program tranche?
Yes, CAO Gowdy. FCM provides a grant specifically for municipalities that are trying to run a clean energy improvement program. I would have to look at exact dollar amounts, but there is a capitalization component and an administrative component. And municipalities that apply through FCM can receive up to 50% of their requested grant just to address administrative costs. However, like I mentioned, when you do apply through FCM, that would extend the timeline to launch. So that 4 to 12-month window leans very much heavily towards the 12 months when you take into consideration using FCM grants or loans.
Councillor Gullickson?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Might have a couple of questions. Is there any interest on this for them to pay extra as far as so they borrow the money from the city for the project. It goes on their tax roll. Is there interest to charged on that?
Yes, that's part of the responsibilities of the municipality to set the interest rate for agreements that are between the municipality and homeowners.
So we set that rate based on what those borrowing costs would have been for us or whatever and potentially could help offset some of the administration costs.
The interest, I believe, is just to pay the loan. I do know that there is an additional administrative cost that is applied to the cost of a project, and that is meant to cover administrative costs. I don't believe the interest is individually meant to cover that kind of a cost.
And my other question, if I can, is regarding, so they go to sell the house, that debt goes with the property then, as far as the property taxes go. So that would be part of their title, I assume, or
Yes.
be there to show the new owners that debt, additional debt is sitting there.
Yes, exactly.
Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So I also think there should be a threshold, because obviously there's some homes that the appraisal of that specific property isn't much more than the land value of that lot. So there's got to be a threshold to what's viable to putting the investment in and not, because like there's always some lots to sell basically for the lot value. And just as of the bigger established lots down, for example, downtown, like there's not every home should be, there's a viable, like there's got to be a threshold. Is that going to be determined? Because that's obviously going to be a tough decision in some cases, because it's, it's still the person's home. Yeah, they may not want to leave, but yet, I don't know. That's a tough one.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. If I understand your question, there might not every home that would benefit from a retrofit might be worth the financial investment. Is that roughly your question? That's true. And any kind of qualifying terms are set by the municipality. So if that's a particular concern, if there's a certain criteria that can be determined locally, then that's this municipality's right to identify that. And that would, again, that's something that would be determined very much down the line in the design phase, if it was a choice by council.
Chief Cody?
However, I think that there's a free market component that would dictate that likely would not occur, because the charge would be registered on the land, not on the building. So for someone to choose to make the investment, they still are committing legally to repaying at whatever terms the municipality obligates them to, even if they immediately tear down the house and the improvement that they made therein, that charge still exists on the land. So I don't think there'd be too many cases where the owner of a home of very, very low value would choose to access the SEEP program and make a significant commitment to an improvement of that structure. But you could definitely put in some thresholds of assessed value to property value, or like land value to building value, that would cover those as well.
Councillor Gullickson, did you have another question or? Nope, no problem. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So just for clarification, there would not then be the opportunity to pay it out faster than the loan if it's set over a certain amount of years for payback, that you could accelerate that somehow, like you do with a mortgage. You have those options of optional payments to pay against principal, et cetera. What would that look like?
Thank you, Councillor Hibbs. There is a mechanism there. What I should say is there are no, I can't think of the word, but there's no stopping.
No barriers.
Yeah, no
Okay.
barriers to
Okay.
repaying your debt before the term is up.
Because I mean, if I were to support a program like this, I actually would prefer if we have the possibility to be able to clear the title. Like if you're trying to sell the property, I think that would be a shame that you're locked into now having to pass on the cost of these improvements. I think that you should be able to settle that up at sale, or not, whatever, but I think you should have the option. But thank you for clarifying.
So I guess I'm struggling to see the advantage for a homeowner. This is based on financial health, and they have to process, they have to go through to prove their ability to pay this. So what's the advantage for the homeowner going through this program as opposed to going in their bank and getting the funds and lessening their oversight burden?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy, for the question. Not being a financial expert, but having been exposed to the program, municipalities have access to certain financing that can pass interest savings onto the consumer, onto homeowners. And so going to the bank, as I understand it, would be very different than going to a municipality that has a clean energy improvement program tax bylaw in place. And then similar to what was mentioned by Councillor Dallas is the servicing of that is made that much more easy by rolling it into the property tax system. And so property owners have very little to change, I suppose, in repaying it, if that makes sense.
Sure. And you had suggested the term of the repayment earlier. Could you just refresh my memory on that?
Yes, individuals can repay the payments before the term is up.
But there must be a maximum length of term.
Yes, yeah, 25 years is the upper limit. And it is based on the kind of improvement. AMSC runs the running list of approved projects, but that isn't to say that it is finite or concrete. So improvements could be included down the line that are approved or eligible. And based on those improvements, expected life would be the target for the term of a repayment.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I would just make the motion that council direct administration to bring forward in the next strategic plan update an item to develop a clean energy improvement program implementation plan.
Thank you. Chief Gowdy, you had your microphone on earlier or no?
I was just going to add to Mr. Bevans's answer that one of the other reasons could be that it's an advantage to the homeowner is that there is a straight line depreciation and pay down essentially applied through this program, whereas not all investments that you make in a home actually have that same depreciation curve. Many investments might have advanced depreciation in the first few years, or might actually not be considered an additive value to a home. To some home buyers that look at a home with a solar photovoltaic solar generation system, for example, despite the value of that system perhaps being $15,000 and it being only 1 year old, they could easily look at that and say, well, actually, that's of no value to me. That's very complex and or a very low value. By funding it through this mechanism, there's a set value. There's no negotiation on what the value is because it's tied to the property. So I think with there being a differential sometimes between a straight line depreciation and real world depreciation on these investments, there might be an advantage for some homeowners as well.
Councillor Konik.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. My only comment is that I could see the value in it if your intent is to be in your home for a while. If you do all these improvements and 2 years later you sell and your taxes are higher as a result, and there's something attached to title, I think you might have trouble selling your home. But if it's something you intend on being there for 10 years and you have it paid off by then, okay. But anyways, it's just, you can explore it further, but I struggle with it a little bit in terms of the value.
Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Just a quick question on the motion that was made. The next strategic plan update would be when, please?
We've been doing them annually. So with that being passed in the first meeting in February, I believe, I would anticipate that would be included at next February's update with a targeted timeline to be developed internally.
So if in fact this does pass, then you'll have the current numbers of uptake in those communities we spoke about, and the whatever the changes in numbers might be next year at this time.
We would have the benefit of the year. Yes, Mayor Creasy.
Exactly. Very good. Just trying to keep it honest because I see a lot of problems with this program, and I think that the uptake in other communities is a clear indication of its value, which is slight, but that's just my opinion. Anybody need the motion read back to us? All good? Very good. All those in favor? And those opposed? So noted. Councillor Hoekstra, Mayor Creasy opposed, and others for. So that is passed 5-2. Thanks, everyone. Next item up, 6.2. Director Thompson, the speed zone modification along 50th Avenue, please.
Good evening, Mayor Creasy and Council. In 2013, Council enacted a 30-kilometer-an-hour speed limit on 50th Avenue downtown, and as a pilot, one-year pilot program. And then in 2014, it was approved formally with the expansion of the program, or expansion of the speed zone limit to extend westward from 53rd Ave or 53rd Street to the Outlook or Outreach School. and that was passed. And so since 2014, the 30-kilometer-an-hour speed limit has extended through west in front of the outreach school. In 2020, the outreach school has relocated, and I'll say the need for that 30-kilometer-an-hour speed limit is no longer meets the same justification criteria as it did in 2014. And so tonight we are seeking council's input or decision on whether or not to restore the western limit of that 30-kilometer-an-hour speed limit to 53rd Street, as shown on the attached drawing in the request for decision.
Councillor Conick.
Thank you, Mayor Christie. So there's a few things. I don't think I can get on board, number one. For various reasons. I struggle first off with where it says here that this recommendation aligns favorably with council's strategic goal to support communities' safety. Typically increasing speed limits in residential zones doesn't seem to me increases safety. I think it's quite the opposite myself. A couple other things. There are some commercial entities within that zone, just a couple, I realize, but I think they would like to retain the 30-kilometer zone. I can't help but wonder if the old outreach school should get sold one day, hopefully, that there may in fact be a retail or a commercial entity in there. But more importantly, I really worry about the intersection at 53rd and 49A. I go through there every day. I do my mail run at Rexall, and then I come back through that way to go get to my bus. And that can be a bit of a tricky intersection because I always go straight through, so I'm heading south, but there is a left turning lane there as well. And it's not a straight shot, as you can see. It turns very quickly there. And I always appreciate the fact that cars are doing 30 there long before that that intersection, because you can judge it better. It's easier to cross there because they're traveling much slower. It's infinitely safer. My fear is, yeah, you move the sign, and then invariably, I think there's still going to be people who are going to be doing 50 by the time they hit that intersection. So I worry about the safety there. At the end of the day, I just wonder what we're gaining. Like, you move the sign, what, 100 meters, and you gain what, 3 seconds, 4 seconds travel time? Really? Like, honestly? So I don't know. I don't have a problem with it the way it is now. Again, people have been trained by it or for it for years. They know they have to do 30 starting there. Is it a pain? Sure, there's people complaining to me about speed limits all the time, but I just tell them, look, the speed limit is what it is. I mean, so I don't, like I say, there isn't much gain to be had there. 3 seconds, 4 seconds, and invariably, I think that intersection just becomes much more dangerous now. And yeah, I won't support.
As you know, it relates to this time, so I guess the one thing that I would offer is that I think we have a responsibility to our citizens to have speed zones that accurately reflect based on genuine requirements. I think initially that was the reason behind extending the properties or the speed zone was beyond that property that we spoke of there. As it sits now, I think that we run the risk of drivers becoming a little lax about the speed zones, not paying attention to them in the downtown area where we genuinely do want them to slow down because of a lot of the reasons that Councillor Conick went through. So yeah, it's 100, as you said, 100 meters one way or another, but I still think that we need to base this in reality and go by the reasons that it was adjusted to lengthen it before. That is no longer the case now. So I think that we should maybe consider the fact that that stretch be put back to the 50K, which aligns it with the remainder of 50th Avenue coming in from the west entrance to the city. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Christie. I would concur with your change of thoughts as It's quite often commented with the number of changes of speeds and the perceptions and the purpose of it. And the outreach school location was specifically for that. And that intersection of 54th Street was duly noted. And I think as you get up to the 53rd Street, the volume even controls the speed as well. I think by the time people get to 53rd, I don't think it's very rare for people to be doing more than 30, if not crawling and stopping several times for pedestrians anyways. But I think there's many different areas throughout the city that we could be reviewed and be more consistent. And this is one area that I think there's been feedback that it's served its purpose. So I'm in favor of what has been proposed to us. Thank you.
There was also some comment regarding safety of the intersection along 50th and the Rexall corner. I'm not sure of the street number there. 53rd, thank you very much, Councillor Hibbs. I appreciate that. Do we have any information on incidents in that intersection that would lead us to believe that that is a particularly troublesome or dangerous intersection? Or do we not have those figures available at this time?
I don't have them here with me. We do have the pedestrian information, which does not record incidents at that location. There are no recorded incidents at that particular location. We do have vehicle stats, not here this evening.
Okay. All right. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I will make recommend a motion that council directs administration to move the western limit of the 30-kilometer-an-hour downtown speed zone to 53rd Street as shown.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any additional comments, questions? If not, I will call the question. All those in favor? And those opposed? So noted. Councillor Connick, thank you. Before we go on to the next item, I wanted to ask administration. I think we're going to have some questions regarding our 2.2.c for the bylaw first readings, given that those were contained within the consent agenda. I'm going to take it as though the first readings passed by default because of their location there. However, do not one or both of those require some public input for a public hearing, specifically for 400.38. I'm just wondering if we're not perhaps glossing over that requirement to set an appropriate date for that. Director Thompson.
So Mayor Creasy, included in the RFD for that item, specifically speaking to bylaw 400.38 first reading, it included the scheduling of a public hearing at 5:30 p.m. on Monday, April 11th, 2022. And so with the passage of the consent agenda, we would proceed with scheduling public hearing at that date.
And thank you for that. Certainly makes good sense. However, when we've got listed in there the motions and possible alternative motions, I think we owe it to the public to be clear about which ones it is that we're proceeding with. So perhaps in future, we could come up with some sort of methodology that would make that clear, more clear.
I'm not.
Keith Gowdy.
I'm not quite following. The only motion I see is the suggested Monday, April 11th, 2022. Was there an alternate dates listed somewhere?
No, but there's two sets of motions.
Yes, so all recommended motions are passed with the consent agenda.
Okay, so then they're fine. That's that's a great way to separate the two than the recommended. But when we've got the other ones listed, I find it confusing. That's specifically why I brought it up. But if that's the way that we're going to go, is it the recommended ones, and that's fine. I don't know if that's quite as clear as what I would hope, to be honest with you, though. Absolutely not, Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I mean, I think I know exactly what you're talking about. It says bylaw first reading. And then of course, as part of that, sometimes is a requirement to have a public hearing. And I think what Mayor Creasy is saying, and I actually think that you're on something here, that it's not clear in here that we're actually accepting two separate motions. And then it might be worth maybe somehow making mention that there is a public hearing being accepted as well. It also just makes it easier for the public. It's not just for our benefit. Of course, it's also the public that are reading these things. And just an FYI, because they might see land use bylaw and think, oh, where's my opportunity to speak? And yes, it's being scheduled. And but I think that's what you're trying to say, right? Is there technically is first reading of the bylaw, but there's also a public hearing being scheduled. So technically there's two separate things going on there. And the second thing isn't really being reflected in the agenda.
Thank you for that. And that's precisely why, with respect to a public hearing, I think the public ought to know when it is. And given that we deal with these each and every meeting, and we're discussing this, suggests to me that that is not as clear as it could be. And especially for the public, the ones that are concerned about this, given that we're in this, this falls in within the consent agenda, and it could be perceived that we've kind of glossed over it on their behalf. Oh, well, I guess it's passed, it's over with. Well, no, there is a public process, public hearing scheduled, and I just think that we could be more clear about that in the future. Your microphone, please.
Thank you. Under bylaw first reading, we'll highlight or make note of which ones are also including a public hearing. That's no problem.
Very good. Thank you. Legislative Coordinator Balabono.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I just wanted to mention also, when we do bring the consent agendas, all the motions are brought into the next minutes. So it will be noted in the minutes coming to the next meeting that there is a public hearing.
Appreciate that clarification. Thank you. My apologies from going around and about here in the agenda, but I think we're at 6.3, are we not? Which is the notice of motion from Councillor Hoekstra from last meeting on February 28th. Councillor Hoekstra, I'll let you read that into the record, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. So I move that council directs administration to ensure a thorough consultation process has been completed to look at the farmers market move downtown in 2023. So as comments to follow that motion, first of all, I did not want to imply, so my apologies to Director Lapointe in particular, that it wasn't a thorough consultation. I just felt that we were onto something and time forced us to make the decision a little more quickly than we wanted to. But I also did want a few other user groups consulted, such as the church and the Cozy Corner, that they truly knew that people would be parking in their parking lot. This could affect funerals, all that kind of stuff. So, or even possibly a wedding or whatnot that goes on during the church during the week. So, yeah, apologies for using thorough, but I would like this given one more year of time to look at it.
Thank you. Chief Gowdy, go ahead.
So we talked a lot about this, Director Lapointe and I, about how to best proceed. And we really have come to the best plan being that because right now we don't actually have a proposal for a downtown farmers market to consider in 2023. Should we get one, we would bring it to council and sort of go through close to the same process with some additional consultation steps, were we to do it again, or we would work with the applicant to do so. Separately, if council does desire to have a farmers market downtown starting in 2023, what we would like to do is bring back a project plan that says exactly how we would go from where we're at today to how we might go to having a farmers market in the downtown for 2023, including specific consultation steps so that you would see exactly what that looks like, who is engaged and how they're engaged. I think when we looked back at the consultation, one of the things we identified is that it's probably time we have the review of the public participation policy in the strategic plan for 2024. And I think that since it's been passed about 5 years ago now, there would be benefit to reviewing that and maybe moving that up a little bit further to make sure we're speaking common language. And so that when we're saying we're going to do consultation or we're going to empower or we're going to consult, we're all having a clear idea of what that means so that expectations are matching what's being delivered. And so we wanted to actually add a section into our RFDs to highlight the different levels of consultation, make sure that's really explicit. And I would say this is a perfect project for that if it's council's desire to have a farmers market downtown in 2023. But I almost think the two should be separated and take it as a given that if we're directed to move forward with this, we will ensure that thorough consultation or satisfactory consultation is completed by proposing exactly what that will be to you. And then you say, yeah, that looks good, or actually we'd like it a little bit further over here, or whatever that might be. But as it stands right now, the difficulty of this motion is that if it passes, it's kind of tough to know what to do, because it's this, make sure there's good consultation for the farmers market move downtown. We could say, okay, well, there is no move, so consultation completed is one potential avenue. But really, we kind of want to know, should we be spending effort on this or should we wait? And if someone brings us something, we'll bring it to you with a consultation plan developed in tandem with the proponent themselves. So I'm sorry that kind of is a little messy, but basically we would ask that you consider clarifying your motion to be specifically about your desire or council's desire to pursue a farmers market move downtown in 2023. And if that were to pass, we would return with that project plan, including public participation in the decision.
Thanks, Chief Cody. Councilor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I guess since this council is obviously the second term, that whenever we get into a position of timely manner, it seems to put council on an overcautious, I think. And like we had one business oppose, and yet we strongly went on that. I think I don't support this because I said, in my opinion, I don't care if it's a farmer's market, whoever wants to enhance downtown, there should be a structured process of engagement, irregardless if it's a farmer's market or any, because I think a volunteer is invaluable in this community for what their passion is to contribute. And speaking to the system manager, Rexall, for example, they have the handicap parking that enables the seniors that if they need prescriptions, which is obviously the purpose of going to a pharmacy outside of the hours or emerge or whatever it may be, that is their priority to cater to their clientele of that specific demographics. But they're also strongly in favor of the increased traffic. And they also stated that the LMC in downtown and bigger events, their parking lot is used several times throughout the year for other major functions that take place at the LMC, and it may obviously even take place at the parking lot around Circle K. So you know, it's not only the farmer's market. I think there should be a standard process of consultation, not even specific, like, and I don't think it should be specific to the farmer's market. It should be, you know, here's a process that is created by administration that is a standard for everyone, irregardless if it's the farmer's market. So I don't support this because I feel that in light of the farmer's market, there's a change in leadership because of health reasons from the previous presenters. And yes, I've heard they're still going to be coming across 2023. That is that group's organization. We should not be micromanaging and preparing them for their steps. That's their responsibility as any group or organization in this city that wants to do something to contribute to the community. It's not us to micromanage. It's us to either help them to set it up with the standard set of procedures, and whether it's funded or not, that's fair and equal for everybody. And if there's, I'm sorry, a significant 90% majority, then the others need to adapt. Like, so I just think this should not be specific. It should be a general set that's created by administration that's fair and equal for everybody, no matter what the organization is. So.
Councillor Connick?
Thank you, Mayor Christie. My question is to Director Lapointe. Did that group approach you after the fact to say, hey, is there still a possibility for 2023 or no?
In fact, they approached me to see if there was still a possibility for this summer, but definitely expressed an interest in 2023.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I support like I said before, I support the farmer's market coming down. I just didn't support the idea of it happening in 2022 because I thought it was too hurried. There is a process in place. I just think we missed a few steps. We didn't consult with everyone that we should have. No big deal. But I think there should be a motion of some sort saying, yeah, that we want to let them know that we do want them to come. We just didn't feel the timing was off for this year. So I don't know how to wordsmith this or how to make this work, but I believe there should be a motion for sure to some effect.
Councillor Hoekstra?
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. So thank you for your comments, CEO Gowdy, because I think you're capturing what I was trying to get at is that, as Councillor Ross said, due to speed, maybe the public consultation process could have been enhanced. And that was what troubled me, because business owners said that they did not get a chance to think about like they basically, you walked into the business and asked them about it sort of thing, or did they get a email a week before? And then, I don't know, there was just the comment that they had to think or respond on the spot. And I think we can do that part better. So I support what CEO Gowdy is saying, that just to review our process. Is that in essence what you're saying there, public consultation process? But I also appreciate what Councillor Connick is saying, that we need to encourage the farmers market to potentially approach us again, which they already have, it sounds like.
Thank you. I would suggest that approaching us isn't quite good enough either. We need clear-cut ask for what it is that they want. And we can go about either accommodating them or not after that. There was a presentation made. It had nothing to do with 2023. And there's been some date adjustments since then. To the best of my knowledge, the farmers market is moving to the Thursday evening at the current location. And I mean, who knows what that brings? So I think it's up to that organization to let us know at a time of their choosing, when in fact they do care to come and bring the ask to council. Just because for us to suggest that we want it down there or not, I think is very much micromanaging. I expect that all of council wants the farmers market to be very successful. But for us to somehow suggest, oh yeah, in 2023, you can move down here and do this or that or the other thing is a little bit of an overreach. I appreciate Councillor Hoekstra wanting to be thorough, and I think it's been discussed quite a bit. We would like to better understand what thorough means. I expect there's probably more people that are going to be impacted by this than just a few immediately along the street that were contacted so far. I find it interesting that this organization somehow was effective enough in their ask to expect the city to go about accomplishing this process on their behalf and either getting support from businesses or asking otherwise. Any other kind of development or encouragement throughout the city, it's up to the proponent to look after that type of process, just like it is in developing or anything else. I mean, this is not a bunch of volunteer vendors. These are for-profit businesses, some of them small, some of them certainly not so small. So I think that rather than expecting our own administration to carry all of the burden for either the approval or denial of this, there should be some onus put on the proponent to bring that information forward and at least make a proper ask. And here's the backup, and those are in favor that want to see it changed to a location which is going to have some impact to our city. Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Guy, just have a quick question, or Director Lapointe. How many businesses did you visit? And you visited with the people from the farmers market, is that not correct?
45, not just businesses, but the one resident that was located along 51st Avenue was also consulted as well. And so, yeah, the president of the board as well attended, led the sessions, and we supported.
Great. So my thought is that would we accept their information if they went on their own? Like, would we even say that that is the true feeling of that? Because this is very important that the business community in the area is on board. I mean, I think this is a great idea to move it downtown, but I mean, we want the business community to be on board, and would we be willing to accept the information provided by those vendors saying, yeah, they love us, they want us to come down there, or would we have to have our own information?
I guess on my side of things, my response would be that this group definitely wanted some assistance from administration, and there was some direction from council to support it with the consultation piece, which is why we thought we would go together and lead the consultation together. But we did leave it to them to decide where exactly they'd want to consult. We didn't use our own standards for that. So it was a 2-block radius that they decided on, which is why some of these items were perhaps missed.
Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Yeah, I'd like to just second what Councillor Gullickson said there is we cannot expect just individuals to do their own research and bring it to us and expect to have possibly correct information. And I'd also just like to use caution when we're directing consultation with everything, as it seems as though I've seen multiple instances where we receive consultation and then we immediately question it and go against it. So if we are going to be using consultation, I think we need to make sure we are listening to it and not offering our own unsolicited advice to it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dallas. To be clear, though, we do expect individuals and individual companies to do that now with developments. So to suggest that this is somehow different, I think is a bit of a stretch, but your point's certainly taken. Councillor Hoekstra, you did have the motion read into the minutes, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity to make any kind of amendments that you may see fit.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I guess that I was going to ask, what is the will of how would you, because my desire is to review the consultation process, just as CEO Gowdy was alluding to, that it does become muddied when we don't have a proposal on the table for them to come back downtown. Like they haven't made that request. So I hear that, but I could also just withdraw it completely, and I don't know what you want me to do in that regard. Direct me, please, sir.
Well, while that may be polite of you to suggest that, it is your notice of motion. So what you do is up to you. Perhaps we'll entertain a few other individuals here and you can think about, ponder it further. How does that sound? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Christie. I guess in most proposals, there seems to be always a learning opportunity for both administration, council, and the applicant. And, you know, Director Lapointe talked to 45 businesses. We had one that was pretty much the adamant one opposing it. Still spoke to 45 businesses, even though, yeah, you missed out on 3 that were in the circumference of perhaps in hindsight may have been, could have been included. I guess how much more thorough do you want to go? I guess, yes, we could have talked to Rexall and the 2 or 3 businesses we didn't, or do we expand the questionnaire rather than yes or no? I don't know. It's just, do we maybe redirect administration to have the process in itself so it's thorough, not specific to the farmer's market or anybody. We don't have anybody that's come forward with an application. It's like, like I could see perhaps to developing a standard, because it's obviously going to include bylaw. It's going to include our new economic development manager, and CEO Gowdy and the team. It's just not, I don't agree with it being specific. So that's my point.
Councillor Hoekstra.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I honestly do not know the process and I'm not functioning super sharp here. So can I just withdraw it? Is that?
If you so wish.
I so wish.
Very good. That's what the record will reflect. In saying that, I think that you did bring about some very interesting points, and I expect that administration will bring forward a plan for perhaps some improvements to our consultation process at a later date. Is that a fair expectation, Chief Gowdy?
Yes, we do have it in the strategic plan, and we're going to be doing some changes in the short term so that we have a year's worth of data as we enter into that review, which is planned for 2024. But we are going to be making a few changes that'll make it much clearer what exactly is being proposed when we're talking about consultation, and just help us build that common language that we didn't, much like yourselves, we weren't happy that expectations didn't match what was delivered there. We want to make sure that we are matching those 2 things up. And I think in this case, it was purely a case of we were saying the same words, we meant one thing, and a different thing was envisioned. So we can make some changes and better prepare ourselves for that review that is planned.
Thank you very much. I guess the hindsight will be valuable in that we'll have another year's worth of data, considering that that organization did elect to do a date change, which I would expect is going to have some kind of impact. I don't know what that may be, but who knows? Maybe it'll be a situation where the improvements that they were seeking are found by doing that, and they might not even choose to come forward with a location change. So I think that all things considered, this is not a bad route to go, and hopefully we'll come up with some improvements so it's a little more clear should they choose to make a request in the future as to the exact process and the expectations that there is on behalf of all parties involved. Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I wasn't going to ask this question, but you just brought up the farmers market change. Director Lapointe, is there any restrictions on when they can have the farmers market where it is now? Like they can just change their date without any approvals from us and their times?
So they did check in with us. And that is what led to this whole process that we just went through. There was a desire to move the farmers market to the Thursday evening in its current location from 3 to 7 p.m. It could not be accommodated due to baseball in the evenings. And so that is what led us to considering alternative locations. Ultimately, when council decided not to pursue the current location or the proposed location downtown, it defaulted back to the current site and wanted to see it happen that evening because they felt that strongly about that evening. So they've now adjusted the hours to 3 to 6 so that they can work with baseball, with the intention to extend to 7 p.m. starting at the end of June when baseball is concluded.
Okay, that was my big concern, was the baseball and their ability to work together.
So further, Councillor Gullickson, you also asked if in fact they are able to change the time or date at will. And given that they are using city property, I would suggest no, there is permissions that are required from the city. However, in this instances, those were all mad, were they not? If that helps clarify or muddy things further, but no, they didn't. Yeah. No one can just go ahead and use any city grounds at any time that they choose without proper authority. Is that a fair statement? Very good. All right. Is there any more regular business, regular public business at this time? While you're looking at your agendas, I'm going to go through and just run down the next meeting schedule. They're all 3 regular council meetings at 5:30 p.m. here in City Hall. And those will be one more this month, March 28th. Next month, April 11th and April 25th. Anyone watching at home can mark their calendars, and you, everybody in this room, can update theirs. I do believe that brings us to a couple of items that we have in our in-camera section. I don't believe that we've glossed over any other items at this point, have we? So we'll need a motion. Yes. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you. I will so move that we move in camera at 6:37.
Thank you very much. All those in favor?